Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. So as you all know, we're doing a spacecraft theme. So we're going to be remaking this. I'm going to be doing this ship that you guys are seeing here. We're going to be making it from scratch and show you the process that I like to use to do something like this. So I'll be sprinkling in a bunch of different features as we go through here. But obviously, before we get into this, we do have another ZBrush expert with us. So I want to invite that person in right now into the stream. So let's bring that person in now for us all. There he is.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Robinson, a round of applause, round of applause, round of applause.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
I'm super stoked to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, absolutely. Excited to have you. But there's also another reason, everybody, why Ian is here with us. I'm sure some of you may have recognized him from streaming, usually on Sundays, right? You always went on Sundays on the channel.
Always went on Sundays at 5 Los Angeles time.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Well, the exciting part here is I would like to officially welcome Ian to the ZBrush team. He's actually now a member of Maxon, and he's going to be with us now and doing a lot of stuff for us with you all too through ZBrush. So let's welcome Ian to the team, everybody. Woo. So thanks. Excited to have you a member here and doing a lot more. So he's going to be doing a lot of Ask ZBrushes, a lot of other things. He's also going to now be switching his streaming day. We're going to start looking at having him stream on Wednesdays now. So you're going to be able to talk to Ian on Wednesdays during his streams. And again, welcome to the team, Ian.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so definitely we're going to be covering Ask ZBrush stuff. We're also going to be doing condensed versions on like our TikTok and YouTube Shorts. So look out for that stuff too. So keep those Ask ZBrush questions going because I'll be going through those and making those videos. And then, yeah, Wednesdays will be, so it'll be a lot like my Sunday streams where you guys can come ask questions. Might make them a little bit more focused on making projects so we can take more dedicated tools and features so that we can bring that stuff to the forefront so that you guys can come ask those questions and see stuff get made in a relatively, easy and fun way. So definitely looking forward to it. And I'm super stoked to be here.
Yes. So excited. Also, I know you started, for those that are signed up to our newsletter. If you're not, you might want to. Ian's going to start making assets. So anybody that's signed up for a newsletter, the first one's going to drop in this upcoming newsletter. He's going to start making assets for free so that you guys will be able to download and put stuff in your ZBrush. So every newsletter, Ian's going to be making something too for that. So if you have not signed up for a newsletter, I would highly recommend that. And before we get going on the ships, next week we've got another stream coming up too with Brian Beatty. So if you haven't seen that, you can launch your homepage right here in ZBrush, and you can see right here and get your reminder for that. Ian's actually going to be hosting that with Brian Beatty. So Brian's awesome. I'm sure you guys probably recognize his work. He does a lot of cool toy-like work with pop culture characters, people. It's really awesome work. So you don't want to miss that. So Ian's going to be there at 1 p.m. next Tuesday for that stream. So
especially if you guys are looking to get into toy, that type of industry, it's an industry spotlight, and so we're gonna bring those questions too because he's gonna help answer some of that stuff. So come on in.
All right, well, let's get into it. I'm gonna redo this live. What are you doing? Let's show your screen. What are you gonna do?
What I'm gonna do is, I made this really cool little fun Minecraft ship, but I'm going to be sculpting the TARDIS, and I'm going to be using Gizmo duplicate and some cool features like array mesh to make this shape. It looks pretty simple on the surface, but ultimately, just because it looks simple doesn't mean it's really just easy. So I'll show some really cool things and features on how to block something out like this really quickly as you're building your other ship, which is awesome, by the way. I love how detailed that ship is.
Oh, super cool. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's still got some more stuff I'd like to do, and I'm probably need to do some more detailing on it. Actually, I'm not done with the details. So I like to have referencing of my own piece sometimes, especially like this if I'm rebuilding something. So I'm going to do some quick document exports here of just my piece and working on this. I'm going to bring them back in. I like to have them spread out a little bit on my Spotlight. I'm a big fan of that.
Nice,
So I'm
nice.
just
Yeah.
gonna
I,
export a
I,
couple views. Go ahead.
I love Pure Ref, but I always like to bring a single image in with Spotlight as well, just so I have my reference on the screen. So I'm going to do that too. But I always like having the Pure Ref because I can just come in and like just zoom all the way in on these images, drag and drop. It's so helpful. So, but getting that Spotlight image is super cool.
Yeah.
So let me load that up.
Yeah, I don't use PureRef as much. I do, but for some reason I'm just always I like having it. So do you use the see-through then with your PureRef, or are you?
Sometimes I mainly just glance at it. It's more
Oh
of
yeah.
like a way that I can quickly. I usually have like anatomy charts, or I'll have measurements off to the side, or just really quick things to just glance at to know I'm on track, and then a bunch of random reference of whatever item I'm actually looking at. Um, so let me pull up an image to put in Spotlight because I do that as well.
Yeah, I like having it right here in this, and especially if you have a 4K monitor, you got all that room to mess around with.
All the room in the world.
Which for a stream, I don't have that much room as we would normally. So I for mine, I used a lot of ZModeler for this, actually, live booleans, made some insert mesh brushes. In fact, some of you that maybe watched the TIE Fighter stream that I did a couple months ago, I think it was a couple months ago, I even pulled that up and started using some of the pieces from the TIE Fighter on here as well. And that's the beauty, you know, kind of kit bashing, remaking some things is a way to go. So if you guys have questions, both, by the way, you know, as we're going along here, Ian and I are looking at the chat. We'll be trying to monitor that as much as we can, answer the questions. We would love this to be an engaging stream for you all, as usual. I think the way Ian and I always have streamed, we like to be involved with what you're all asking and making sure we get those answered for you. Because I think I think this is why I like streaming. We get to be able to have a live feed with you all.
That's the perk of streaming. It's like you'd be able to connect with everybody, and then too, it's a great way for people who don't, you know, who want to ask something. You know, what better than a ZBrush artist who's already in the software?
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting mine in Spotlight. Organize them. Let me.
Oh, nice. The TikTok you guys posted on duplicating was awesome. Thanks. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I want to do more like that because I think there are things in ZBrush that we can showcase so fast because, you know, they're just little neat tricks that I think a lot of people don't know about. So, you know, something like that, I use that all the time. You know, so glad it was helpful.
Yeah, speaking of a neat little trick, here's one right now that I can do for you all. So you see this? I'm kind of filling this with a color. So I'm using Spotlight, right? So I'm using the paint option here. Let me magnify this. I'll magnify this right here. So I'm using this little paintbrush option, which that's just going to allow you within Spotlight, like I can paint over top of my render. Well, it's not render, it's just a screen grab in essence, right? But if you hold the control key, and I'll switch to different colors so you guys can see this. So if you hold the control key and then click and drag, it's going to go try and find. So in this case, that blue, right, was the same color everywhere. So that's what it went to go and just turn all that blue to this wonderful hot pink now. Okay. And so if you grab any image, right, so if I grab this image and do the same, so this has got the gray background originally from my ZBrush document. So now if you just hold control and start dragging, and when you're on the paint, you'll see it'll start. If you keep going, it's just going to fill in the ship, right? Because it's a quick way to mask out colors, and this can work with it doesn't even have to be a solid color in the background. It can be anything. Now, the benefit here is if I switch to pure black and Spotlight becomes transparent. So in essence, now I'm getting a cutout of my ship. So that way I can position these in spots here, and then I can grab this one now, switch paint. And then, so in essence, I'm going to set myself up a couple images throughout my space here that just shows the angles of the ship that I kind of want to recreate. So I do find I do this a lot, because especially if like we were just talking about referencing, obviously using Pure Ref is amazing. You can do that too, but I like to do this with ZBrush. And sometimes, you know, a lot of times when I'm working on stuff, maybe I'm only working at the head of, say, a character, I can quickly get rid of the body in the image and only have like a head really big somewhere floating in my scene here in ZBrush. And that's what I like. It's less of doing this with your head, keep looking at the other monitor. That's why I was asking Ian if he actually uses see-through, because see-through will let your ZBrush become transparent. So it's another way to look at reference images. I'm a big spotlight guy for me personally.
Actually, I'm using see-through right now if you want to kick over. So I have this blueprint of my, and I'll go full. So I have the blueprint of the TARDIS here in my pure ref, and I'm able to just come on up to that slider and say something like, yeah, let's go like 20. And then now I can, with the poly groups turned on, I now can just kind of come over and size it the way I want it to be, and just get that good reference, and then duplicate, and then scale this up. And now I can get my block out happening pretty fast. And this way, like you were saying too, not having to look at another monitor, even though I have like 2-3 monitors at any given time, it's super helpful to just look at the one screen, especially if you use like a display tablet, like a Wacom.
Yeah, I think what I like about see-through too is when I've worked on stuff where it's like from a movie, I'll play the movie in the background, stop frames, and then put see-through so I can see the different views of the character. I use see-through a lot for that in that case scenario.
I'm gonna have to try that. I've never done that. That's awesome.
Yeah. When I had to do stuff like that, stuff that's in a movie or something like that, or it's a good way to use see-through. I found it very useful for that.
Ooh, that's fun.
Okay, and then the other thing you got to be mindful of, the one that I'm doing is in the brush palette, you'll want to turn off spotlight projection here. Okay, that's telling Spotlight to not use it as its main feature, which is now it's got two main features really. Is a projection tool will allow you to project the paint and allow you to project as sculptural information. And then now, of course, Spotlight can create 3D shapes now too from imagery. So those are like two of the main things. And this is like a third thing I'm doing. So you want to turn this off because you want to tell ZBrush, I don't want to use the images to project on, right? And so now the benefit here for me is here, we'll turn off live Boolean so you guys can see how I even use the live Boolean on this. We're going to go through this. So for me, I started this guy with just a cube. Okay, so now we can get going on this piece. And now I've got my floating images. And then the reason why I did the background thing is you can see as I move my piece over, right? It can do this. And I know you can even ways to make it be this up in the top right corner here. You can even put any model you want up there as well. I know, Ian, I think you have a custom one. Don't you have your Captain America cam view?
Normally I do. Yeah, I didn't load it up this time. That's such a common question I get all the time. And I love answering that question because it's such a neat thing to do to have that custom up there. So yeah, I usually do. I got to get it back up there, or maybe make another one.
Wait, question, Ferdos. You're asking how to get the blue screen? Are you asking how I got? Are you asking his UI, his blue UI? Is that what you're asking for Ian? Is that your question?
Yeah.
I'm assuming maybe that's what they're asking.
Well, if they're asking on the UI, what you guys can do for the UI is just go straight up to preferences, and you have interface, and then you have UI, and then, you have, hold on. Well, this is always fun. Wow, why did I just lose my spot? Eye colors, there we go. So you go to preferences, eye colors, and then these colors up here are usually, let's go to config, and I'm just gonna restore standard so you can see that. So let's go back to preferences, eye colors, and these are usually blue. All you need to do is just either pick your colors onto the side here, hit V, switch another color. Let's go blue like that. So let's go back to preferences, and now you can just pick and drag this over. You can either use the color wheel or use your custom colors, and that in itself, I like to do a gradient. So I like to do like a light blue and a dark blue. And that gives us kind of a nice gradient fall off. So the button doesn't look super flat, but that's how you would do that. So if that's to the question, that's how you do that. So it's just preferences and eye colors. And I'm just going to go ahead and restore my custom because mine's a little darker.
I don't end to customize that much.
I found that for me, the orange was fine, but I don't know, like after a while, it would just kind of bother me a little bit. So I just changed it, but I usually keep the UI standard, especially since I like knowing where everything's at, apparently except for eye colors, but I like to know where things are at. So, and when I'm explaining it, it's helpful to showcase where that's at.
I would say though, it's probably good for those of you that are getting into ZBrush watching this, it'd be good to make your own custom UIs. I think I would say like a person that's using it every day has a custom UI. I just don't have a custom UI because I'm always in things like this or teaching or whatever. So
Yeah, I do this shortcut. So I have a custom menu. That's where I live. So I created a custom menu that pretty much mimics where they are in the actual UI. So subtool, merge visible would be in the subtool. So I just basically built a custom UI to kind of mimic where things are, but also just so the things I use every single day. I started with this. I used to customize everything, but for me, I ended up being like, where is that one thing? I use it all the time here. Now, where is it? So I just went back to the standard, and that was helpful.
yeah, and if you don't know where stuff lives, as far as because in essence, even the standard UI is technically a custom UI, right? So whenever you guys hover over anything, you hold down the control key, right? They'll give you tip information, but at the bottom, it gives you your button path, right? So this, for example, this draw size, it's showing you button path, draw, and then draw size. So it's telling you it lives in the draw menu. So anything else you go to, right? So here, that's that one. Let's move this. That you go to, it'll tell you. So you can see tool, then it's in the geometry, and then this is called b.bevel. This is what the button's actually called inside of ZBrush. So when you guys start throwing custom UIs around, you're trying to remember where anything is, do that. The other thing too with custom UIs that some people are not aware of that you can do, especially with these, I don't know how many you're aware of, you can actually do this with your menus as well inside of ZBrush. So you can add a ton of sliders and buttons here. So I like Ian's approach of making your own menu, but just so you all know, you can actually move the side menus and the top menus. So all you do is you go to an open spot and you hold down control, and then you can move up and down. So when you start to make a custom UI, I would take advantage of that as well too. It might help you guys. Some people would like kind of section it off and hey, this is the section where I'm doing my painting stuff, my modeling stuff, my sculpting stuff, so forth and so on. So it's just another nice thing to have.
Yeah, agreed. And I
want to know how to do a custom UI.
Leonard,
hey Leonard, you're in here. How are you doing, Leonard?
Hey Leonard, how you doing? All right, doing a custom UI. Let's go ahead and we'll pause it. So doing a custom UI, just so that you could propagate stuff. First thing you want to do is go to preferences, and then you're going to want to. This is what I do. I first save out a brand new UI. So I would go save, and then I would rename this, my UI, something simple. I start with that because I want to make sure that I don't overwrite something that I wasn't supposed to, or eventually just want to be able to quickly load stuff back up. So that's something to do. The next thing you do is you go to custom or enable custom, which is right here. And once you do that, you notice that my screen now, it shifts up a little bit. That's so you can start dragging buttons and menus and things around. And then from here, if you're like, oh, okay, I want to have some brushes like down here at the bottom. What I tend to do is I'll end up docking a thing and then going through and picking my favorite brushes. So I'll go like B, C, let's see, B, C, B for clay buildup, BST for standard brush, BDS for damn standard. But what that does is if you try to drag it from your brush menu, it's not really going to work. You need to go under brush. So then they show up here on the side. And now what you can do is say, oh, I want my clay buildup. So you hold Control Alt, and now you can drag that wherever you want. So I want these down here. And then you just, hey, I have my clay brush, Control Alt, drag that down there. And you can do this for most things. You're like, oh, reset current brushes. I'm going to want that here too. And ZBrush's UI is completely customizable. You can put anything pretty much anywhere that you want. So when you're done with your customization, you say, yeah, I like this. And again, we're going to go like here, for example, I use UV master all the time. I can just Control Alt and drag the UV unwrap and polygons. So that way, stuff like that can be everywhere. Once you're done with that, you just go back up and check enable customize one more time. So turn that off. And then you're going to want to save that. So go back and save UI. And then once that's done, you're going to want to hit store config. If you don't hit store config and you shut down ZBrush and it opens back up, it's going to open back up with the original default. So once you hit store config, boom, now you're done. At least with that portion. The other thing, if you wanted to maybe have a startup material, if you go to material and select like toy plastic, I love toy plastic, so we'll start with that, right? Once you're done with that, there's a button down here called Save as Startup Material. If you click that, it's going to say, okay, ZBrush will start up with that startup material. There's a lot of really cool features, so definitely poke around. If you would like to do a more like custom UI, like this custom pop-up, so then we go to preferences and we enable that customize again. Now we have custom UI, right? Now this is where I recommend you kind of, again, open up your side menu, whichever one you would like, because we're going to want to kind of dock it and then apply stuff to that. So let's go back up to preferences, and then we're going to say create new menu. And let's name this, call this just test for now. And now that's going to kind of pop up a brand new drop-down menu. So if we go, and it'll be alphabetical, by the way. So if you use it, like I just clicked it and it was over here by help, then it disappeared. It's actually alphabetical. So if you look at your top menu, you see it now it's under T for test. So what we'll do is it has that little icon that everybody knows. If you touch that, it kind of pops to the side. But we're going to dock that actually to the left side. I like docking things to the left. I don't know, Paul. Do you just dock wherever? Or
I'm a right. I think it's probably because I'm right-handed.
Yeah, I feel like I don't use the left side of my screen enough, so that's where I do that. And then once that's docked over there, then you can start applying stuff to that. So we go back to the preferences, and now you can actually drop in some, some like a test menu, and then you can start dragging, dropping in maybe, oh, I want my brushes in there. Now this little test button here, the reason why that's there is more like a space. When I turn off enable custom, that disappears, but I put one in there in the beginning, so that way I know that that's starting to dock that way. You can always just hold Control Alt drag to the viewport, and then that will disappear. So if you don't want that feature or button in there, just do that. Control Alt drag it to the viewport, it disappears. And then you just go through and start putting in whatever you want. Hey, we use array mesh all the time, right? So we'll put in some array mesh features. Boom. Now you obviously want to take your time with this and not be as sloppy as I am, but just to kind of show you what you can do with it. And once you're done with that, again, then we just come down, enable customize, turn that off, save your UI out, so that way you have it for next time. And then store config. And then that way, when you load it up, like I have my Aero Sculpts one, then we're going to go ahead and load that. And then you can set that to a custom hotkey. I have mine set to 2 because I never used the 2 button. So I have that to button 2, and I can always propagate that. So that's how you create your custom UI menu. So UIs, menus, all really cool stuff.
Okay, so some questions here have started coming through to why we're doing this. So let me answer some of these. He just did the custom UI pop-up. No, you can't open up 2 of the model's next menus side by side. So you can't have 2 of the custom menus open at the same time because you're going to shortcut them anyways. Right. So it can only call one or the other because it's going to pull it up wherever your cursor is. So it can't open up both at the same time to answer that question. How do you set custom hotkeys for pop-up menu? You got to just turn off enable customize and then do like any hotkey. Just hold down Control and Alt and click on your menu and then make your hotkey. And then just make sure you store it out though, right? So in the preferences, make sure you store that hotkey as well because that's separate. The hotkey are a different file than the actual UI itself. Those are 2 different files. So make sure you store that as well. And then a question to me, is there a way to wrap curve around an object and adjust the wrap angle to be really small? Can't do that because the default angle snaps too straight and it only changes after about 20 degrees. If you're talking about, I think what you're talking about is a curve. I can show you something. I think this is what you're looking for. So let me just load something. So if I want to wrap a curve around a sphere as an example, if I'm using something with curve mode, obviously I can't have subdivision levels, of course, here, right? So let's grab an IMM. Where are you? IMM curve. Okay, and then say I want to do some stitches like this, and I want to do something like this, just so you guys can visually see this. So if you start dragging out and then you hold the shift key and then come to the document, this will allow you to wrap around a surface. So you could go this route and then let go, and then it'll wrap around. And then of course you can adjust now with your draw size and make the stitches be different sizes, smaller sizes, and keep going that route. Another way would be to, since if you're using curve mode, you can't have subdivision levels. Some other things that I like to do is use some of the other brushes or techniques to give me maybe what I want. So i.e. say something like a slice curve, right? You can slice across, and then you're going to start using polygrouping now. So we can do a circle. So I can do a circle there if I want to. If I want this to be a perfect circle, I'd want to come here to the stroke palette. Again, I'm holding down Control Shift to call this brush. And then I have a center, and then I want it squared. So squared means obviously a perfect circle fits within a perfect square. So now I'm going to get a perfect circle and I drag it out, right? And then I can do something like this. Then I can say, oh, I want one down here, and I can do Shift 1. I can put one there. I can put one there. I put one there. What that's doing is replaying the last stroke I did with Shift 1, and that is playing the last stroke was a slice brush. So that's what this button is here, replay last relative. It's relative to your cursor. That's the part of the relative part, right? So then the benefit to this is if I got a brush with curve in curve mode. So in the stroke palette, this particular brush actually has curve mode on, and I can come in here in the curve functions, excuse me, and then come here and say, hey, I want you to frame based upon the poly grouping, right? And then you click and you can see, if I turn off, there's curves wherever. And then now if I touch, I'm going to get those wrapping everywhere. So I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but that's how I would do it. Okay, and as far as the reference imaging, back into how I did the reference images again. So this is how I did the reference images here. I'll grab another one. I'll just grab another one of these here, this one. Okay, we'll throw it in. It's pretty big, right? So you're just importing the texture, just import your images, and then you'll have the images here, and you just click on one. And when you click on one, these will be off, right? But this is what's adding to the spotlight. So you can see if I stop moving, it says add to spotlight. But since I've already engaged with spotlight, I already have images there. That's why it's highlighted. It's like, hey, you've already got images in spotlight. So that's why it will be orange. But when you start off fresh, those 4 buttons won't be orange. It's not going to be orange until you put an image into spotlight itself. Okay. And then how I did the masking coloring part is, we don't want the texture here. I took the color, which is the paintbrush, in spotlight, and then you can grab any color you want, and then it'll paint. And what it's going to use is going to paint with whatever brush I have selected. So right now I have clay buildup selected. So that's why you kind of see a squared like alpha, because it's using the alpha to actually paint. Okay. And then so all you need to do, and by the way, your draw size can be important in certain things, because that's the evaluation of when it's going to do this. So when you have paint mode on, I'm going to go with a smaller brush size. I'm going to hold down Control and start dragging out, and you see it fills with the color. And what it's doing is it's sampling and finding that gray color that's my background color for my document, and finding all the same pixels with that same value. And then that's it, right? So it doesn't matter what color. I'm only using a color right now so you have a visual understanding. But then all you need to do is use pure black. And if you use pure black and just do the same thing with pure black, when I hold down Control and drag, it just changed all that, whatever color I was using, that little green mint color, and made them all now black. So now pure black, 100% black in spotlight is transparent. Okay. So like I can even start painting out this image. See? So this is what I mean. I like to bring in images, and I'll even do this. I'll just paint out parts that I don't need, and then just have a little section, right? And then you can turn this off, and like, so I could do something like this if I wanted to at the bottom of my screen, right? And if I don't want this image anymore, then it's a simple just hitting the delete X, and then that's it. We're off and running. Okay. And then there's two modes to spotlight. There's this mode. So anytime you see this big, massive dial, that's your edit image mode. In essence, edit these images that I'm looking at. That's what this is. This is edit spotlight mode. And then you turn it off with the Z key, as in ZBrush. Okay. If you want to know where that button lives, it's right here in the transform. So you can see I'm hitting the Z key for ZBrush. For those fellow Canadians, Z, and Australians that are watching from New Zealand, anybody else that uses Z, right? And then again, don't forget, if you want to do what I'm doing reference imaging wise, make sure you go turn off in samples in the brush. So I'll make it smaller. So samples, this will be turned on by default, this spotlight projection. Turn it off, right? Because that tells ZBrush to not use the spotlight as a projection tool, okay? And right now I'm modeling. I'm not looking to use it as a projection tool. So I'm turning that off, okay? So that should answer your questions for you. Cool. Nice. Is there a way to wrap a normal brush around a model like the Dame Standard and Standard Brush? Yes. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. It's actually a feature that we added. Now, like the COVID years have made a blimp in my life, and I don't know anymore when things were added and not added. Like we did 4 versions of ZBrush last year alone, right? So
yeah,
blur. I don't know anymore. Okay. So when you want to use like a brush like this, like a standard brush or something like this, right? Number one, if you're trying to make a consistent stroke, say around like this, like a sphere, you got to remember you're using pressure sensitivity. Okay. So me pushing down is not the same rate as then see I'm starting to pull up and pushing down, right? You're going to get different results based upon your pressure sensitivity. So if you are looking to do something where you want like a nice consistent stroke and you're going to be going around a surface like this, okay, here, what's going to change? Let's change to a gray instead of looking at that, all right? And let's pick something also that's a little bit more extreme. I like showing this off with the chisel brush. This is one of my favorite brushes, and especially since we're hard surface. Scribe line, right? Boom, instant, love it. And then I like to combine. All right, let's hit my button, tangent alert. Okay, for me, I love using this brush to just do some quick, nice little lines in my hard surface. Scribe line, so you can see there's some in here, right? So like if you look, here we'll go a little bit bigger, like see this kind of stuff through here, or like that kind of stuff right in there, you know, that right there. There's multiple ways to do this. This is just one way that I like to do this with, and it's just also going to highlight what your question is. So number one, when I'm using this particular brush, the chisel brush, I like to use 2 other things with it, right? One is pretty much because when you do this and then I come across and then do stuff like this, you'll see when we get in close, the results where the strokes are overlapping isn't perfect. So like here we go something a little more extreme. Here, let's even go more polygons. Like that's a nice stroke. And then you can see what happens there, right? Because obviously when this stroke comes across, this is on a nice smooth surface. This isn't smooth here, right? There's different levels happening here. So what you're going to want to do to keep consistent is number one, store morph target. So now when you sculpt across, you are good to go, right? So this is perfect. This is why I like to use this brush to add some nice accenting scribe lines on all my hard surface. This is one of my go-tos for me. Like I do this in like stage 4 for me. My hard surface for me is 1, 2, 3, 4 stages. So this is like a stage, maybe 3 into 4 stage for me. Now, the other thing that I want to throw at us that I like to use is thick skin. I think this feature, when we added this, was a big one for me. Okay. Scribe lines 10 is like just cut lines that you'll see on hard surface ships and stuff. You'll see like little just lines. It's to help show kind of also the scale of those hard surface pieces. Like in this ship, if I put more scribe lining and panel in it, that already gives to you, the viewer, that this ship's really big, right? Compared to something that's smaller, that's just a single cockpit person-driven ship. So that's what they also help with, okay? So you guys, don't forget about thick skin, because the fun thing about thick skin is, you know, you can play with this, and then so you're going to get different results from your thick skin, right? So this is a great way to play with this idea, right? And you can see I'm getting different levels, and I'm using thick skin now to create different items here, right? And I can go bigger and then, so there, now I'm getting the whole stroke. But see, all these are different. So I can find different, so I'm using morph target now with thick skin and then getting different types of scribing here happening. So see now it's getting a little more flat in there. And see, it's not, it doesn't have the roundness. It's flat right there. And it's because of this is now sitting at 60. So if now I go 50, okay, and I do this, you see now it's even more flat. But this is nice, right? And don't forget, now we can start using other things like the inflate brush, right? And then now see, there'll be a point where it stops. Okay. So this is nice to like, oh, well, let's drop this down to 10. Okay. And then I'm going to go a lot more intensity. And then so you can do like lines like that too. So they've got a little bit of softness in the edge. There's just a lot of really great ways to use this. Okay. So I digress. Everyone's got it. I just wanted to show this because I just like combining this. Let's go back to the chisel. Sorry, Ian, I'm on I told you.
No, you take it.
Tangent. Okay, so when you guys are doing this, again, pressure sensitivity is really, really important to me now because when I make this stroke, I'm going to now rotate this model and I want some more consistency happening through here, right? I want to start from here now and continue the stroke, but you can clearly see where I started and stopped. Okay, and that's not what we want, especially if you introduce the shift key where we can make, perfectly straight lines on different angles. And then now I want to come here and now I want to go from here and up this way, right? I want to get rid of that little mark that's happening right in there. Okay. So what we're going to do is turn something on that tells ZBrush that's exactly what I want to do. When I do this, what I want to have happening as I'm going along here. Okay. And this is going to work with lazy mouse. So this brush by default has lazy mouse turned on, which is nice because I'm going to want nice consistent lines through here. So in the stroke palette, in the lazy mouse, right? So here's your lazy mouse features. Right here, lazy snap. Okay, so this is what you want to turn on, number one. So I'm just going to put this pretty high. It goes all the way to 100. I'm just going to put it higher so you guys can see what's going to happen. You obviously can control this and what snapping do you want ability here. It's going to be important because if you're trying to make things that are close to each other, you might want to adjust the snapping. You're going to see here in a second. And again, I keep saying pressure sensitivity is important. So if I want consistency, I want to eliminate, in essence, my pressure sensitivity. So for this brush, I either just use a mouse, sculpting with a boxing glove, right? Because that's consistent, only left mouse down. There's no pressure sensitivity there. Or in the brush palette for this particular brush, I, in essence, get rid of the pressure sensitivity so I can still use my pen. So those are your two options in here, okay? So what we'd want to do is tablet pressure here. You can see these graphs. You can see all of these are consistently solid. So that means with my pressure sensitivity, Z intensity stays consistent, RGB intensity stays consistent. Everything else stays consistent except for size. So you can see size has got a ramp. So that means as you're pressing lighter, the size is going to change of your stroke. And I can't have that for what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go here into my brush and I'm going to take this bottom dot and go all the way up. Sound effects, as you all know, so important to have sound effects. Okay. And then now, no matter how hard I press, like here, I'm barely pressing, it's the same stroke. Here I'm pressing really hard. It's consistent across the board. Okay. And then now, because I've turned on this lazy snapping, when I go and say make a stroke like this, and then I start moving around and coming like this, when I'm hovering here, you can see where my cursor is. If I click, see where there's a line? See, it started where I left off, right? So if I come around here and see where my cursor is right now, see it's way out here. It's nowhere near here. But if I click down, see there's a line. See, that's actually, that start of that red line is where the stroke is starting. And you can see we don't have that little dip anymore. So you're not going to be able to tell where I started and where I ended. Okay. And I use this on every single hard surface piece, honestly, that I do in ZBrush. I will use this brush with this technique almost on every single thing I do hard surface inside of ZBrush. So for those that want to get into ZBrushing hard surface, this is great. So in essence, what this feature is doing, this lazy snap, it's looking at the very last stroke where it ended. And as long as your icon is close enough, it snaps back to where it actually ended. So this is if this, I don't know who is asking the question now, but this to me is a big one. I use this all the time. So see, I can continually just keep working from here. But remember, pressure sensitivity is going to be important, okay, to do that, and then turning on that slider. I know I went on an inception tangent there, but there you go.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
Back to you, people.
Somebody was asking, well, we had a couple questions that came in.
Yeah.
The first one real quick was asking about when you're masking with ZModeler, you alt click and the faces and they become white, and not a classic mask. How do you undo that? So if we'll just pull up a new model here, just something like this. So if you're using ZModeler and you're touching alt white, and you want to undo that, even if you clicked away. So I'm just alt clicking. I let go. I'm like, I don't like that. You could just you could alt tap that. But let's say you actually change a polygroup color, because you guys know if you're dragging out, right, and you start hitting alt, you can change that polygroup color. So if you want to kind of undo this feature and you don't like this, you're like, oh, I need to get rid of that. I made a selection I don't like. If you go back to your original color and hold alt and then shift, you can then drag and clear that mask out. So if it's just white, just undo it again. You don't have to do anything else. Just alt tab it, it'll go away. But if you change that polygroup color and you're like, I don't want to do that because I have another selection over here, so hitting Control W is inconvenient, then just pick your original color that's next to it, alt, click shift, and then you can clear that out. So even if it's a different polygroup color, that's how you would clear that. And then we had another question. I want to make sure I get it. Oh, spotlight projection. Paint texturing with spotlight. Could you show how to do that? Yeah, absolutely. So with spotlight coloring, Paul mentioned earlier that if you hit Z and you have your spotlight, you could pull the color off of this, not just by selecting it, but you can also put it in front of your image in Paint. But like Paul mentioned earlier, if you're using it for reference, you do want to turn off spotlight projection. So, so that's under brush and then samples and then spotlight projection. With the spotlight projection on, you'll be able to paint with the color that's in that. So I'll fill this white just to demonstrate that. So we're going to go white, color, fill object. Now if I wanted to paint on this, and I'll subdivide a few times just so that we have some density, because right now we're at like 1,000 and that's not going to be good enough. So let's go up a little bit, say 2 mil, and now I want to paint this. Just go ahead and grab your paintbrush and you could start painting. And this is how you can also get references on the planes too if you want. Just want to paint that on there. And now, so that texture will come over. So as long as there's enough information in that subtool to hold the color, just like normal poly painting, just bring that that texture in. And to do that, you just go under Texture, Import that image. And then once you select it, and then you hit this button right here, the plus minus, add a spotlight, that will add it. And then there, you can actually color your subtool with that. So that's how you could bring in like tattoos, you can bring in little maps or little, just anything that you want to paint onto your subtool, that's how you would do that. Cool.
Yeah, Chris Johnson, what was your question? Maybe we missed it. Did you say, are you asking it did get answered or it didn't get answered? So I don't know, because I saw you just said, did my question get answered?
I think that was it, because another person had mentioned it. So hopefully, let us know, Chris.
Yep. And for those of us just joining us, again, I want to welcome Mr. Ian to the ZBrush team. So Ian Robinson's actually a member now of Maxon ZBrush.
Yeah.
So he's going to start streaming on Wednesdays, and he's also going to be doing a lot of the ZBrush videos. He's doing a lot of TikTok stuff, and he started even making some free assets for you all if you are actually in our newsletter. If not, you might want to subscribe, because Ian's going to be making stuff on a monthly basis, giving away for free in our newsletter. So that's something else you might want to do. So again, Ian, welcome to the team. I'm sure we'll say it a couple more times because we keep getting more people jumping in here.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you again. It's such an honor to be here. Trust me. And I can't stress it enough. I really love showcasing everything that ZBrush can do, but I also love the community. Like everybody here is just so freaking awesome. So thank you again. It's awesome. And yeah, please, if you also too, if you guys aren't a part of the Pixelogic Discord and you want to pop in there, make sure to do that, because you can always, directly reach out, ask questions in there. Like we have a whole Discord for Pixelogic to kind of, help support the community. So make sure you pop in there as well. Like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think any way you all can get help, we're here for you. Any way we can figure ways to make things for you work.
Yeah.
That's why we got this channel. That's why we're doing streams like this. It's a lot of. I enjoy this stuff a lot. I like it live.
Oh yeah, I prefer live, but I love making videos too. But yeah, if I had to choose, I could be live all day long.
Oh yeah, I prefer live. I definitely prefer live. I don't know what it is. I think it's because when I'm doing videos, sometimes I like nitpick the video too much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time. I'll hyper focus on. I said this one phrase this one way. I'm like,
oh yeah, no, my accent kicks in sometimes. Like, what? What did you just say? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with some kind of vents quick. This is what I love about array mesh for me too, is using it kind of as a design element. I'm a big fan of that. So I'm actually using array mesh right now. So I only have one object that I'm messing with, and then I'm able to see what it's all going to look like. So put some creasing on there. There we go. And I definitely want to add another little, maybe some other little element in here for this now, I think, too. Change these vents up in here. Let's add another edge here, another edge there. Let's put an edge there, another edge there. Let's see, maybe we Q mesh that in a little bit. No. This is kind of what I like about it, is I'm trial and erroring with array mesh, so I can see what all that is going to look like when they're being repeated, and I can hide the mask with Control H, so I can see what is that going to look like. I kind of think I might just stick with what I already had.
I love the sketching elements, just being able to play around and figure out your shapes and stuff that you think looks good. Sometimes you try something and you're like, I don't really like that, but you've tried it, and array mesh lets you do that so fast.
For game meshes, there's a lot of ways to go about this, especially now with the new Unreal 5. You don't need game-ready meshes in some cases for some of your stuff now, because you can literally plop a ZBrush model now into Unreal, right? So you don't need to make game-ready meshes. But I'm doing it right now with low polygon, and so is Ian, where you're doing low polygonal stuff. So what we're doing right now is what you could do for game-ready meshes. But, it's going to depend on the studio you would work at, too. You might, if you get a lot of triangles for you to be able to manipulate and play, you might not have to do even that much. It could be pretty simple to make it game ready. It's going to come down to your studio.
Absolutely.
Really come down to.
I find with hard surfacing, if you keep it low in the beginning, it'll make it really easy to move that stuff over. But yeah, like Paul said, it's definitely studio dependent. Everybody has their own workflow, but best thing to do is just always model as low as you possibly can and work with subdivisions. That will help you get used to that pipeline, because you don't want to stick strictly with like Dynamesh, especially if you're making a character, because then it's too dense. But if you just get in the habit of creating your high res and then either ZBrush it or retopologize it to something that's lower and then project those details back on something that's subdivided, you'll have a lot easier time with that pipeline. So, but definitely reach out, and if you're working with a studio, ask that studio, hey, what's the pipeline? They'll tell you, but it's good to reach out and ask, because everybody does it just slightly different.
Yeah, they're all going to be like, if you're working at a studio that's a mobile game, it's a very different workflow. First, in a way, you're going to have a little bit of different type of workflow for them, because you're not going to go really high in polygon count at all. If you're working at a AAA game studio, that's a whole nother thing right there, right? You're going to have completely something else. Like I said, everything I'm doing right now is very low polygon, So I'm using Z modeler. So see like this, this could go into the inter now. It's only 406 polygons right now. Obviously I'm looking at a smoother version. So I'm using dynamic subdivs, right? So I can see what would this look like when it actually is divided up, because I would not do this. This is too harsh. And when I apply it, then see my polygon count will go to 103. So then this is where if I need to bring this down in polygon number, then this is where the pipeline is going to be. What does this need to be? Your bosses will tell you, hey, that can only be X number of triangles. And then that's what you're going to have to work your way down back to. So you'd have to either retopologize it. Maybe if you're lucky enough, your boss is like, hey, just get it under this number. Then I could just use decimation master if they don't care about the topology in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so I'm modeling a razor. Totally a razor. I like it. Well, yeah, let's put some wings on this now. It totally looks like a razor. Good call. Yes. There's many ways to go about this. I think people for hard surface. I have I could use Dynamesh too to do some stuff, kind of design wise. It helps me. So right now I'm just playing with low polygons items, figuring out what I want, looking at my own reference, which was the ship I've already done, seeing if I can make something similar to that as well. It's your world, as Bob always said. It's your world. Just do whatever you want. Put happy trees everywhere.
Need to save. I'm an avid saver.
Oh, you're saying? Oh, yeah. Let me see. Right. Catching up on the questions here.
Thanks, Nicole. So ZTLs are ZBrush files. If you wanted to open up your ZBrush file in another software, I would recommend exporting to an FBX. They're pretty universal. They work really, really well with most other softwares. So if you wanted to do that, just go up to your tool export, and then you can select a wide range of supported files. I usually work with FBX. And then I would go ahead and name that whatever I wanted to. And then once you hit save, you'll actually have some options. So you can choose either selected, visible, or all. That's going to give you an option on how, if you want to save out just your selected subtool, your visible subtools, meaning visible to the viewport, or all your subtools, even the ones that are hidden, that will do that. I usually choose visible because I don't want to export stuff I'm not using. And I'll have a lot of subtools that are like placeholders or just simple tests that just don't work. And then usually all these are just standard setup FBX 2020. That should be fine. Maya Y ups. And then you just go ahead and say, okay. And then that's going to export everything out for you. And then you can bring that in. But ZTL is more specifically for ZBrush.
To your faceter question, having to fix things in a faceter way, you're going to have to create probably, I'm assuming you're going to have maybe something like this where you have really bad triangulation, right? So even something like this, there's some faceting happening through here, right? And then this is very triangulated weirdly, right? So this is from a CAD program. This is Vitaly Bukharov's piece that he was kind enough to give me for a test. So you can see all this was from, he uses MOI and along with ZBrush and XSI and Max. So this needs to be cleaned up. The problem you have is sculpturally, you want to start doing something to this. You're going to divide. Triangles don't divide well in certain situations. Okay, so like this, you can see all the mess that's happening right in there. It's because just the triangles, if you look, they're just massive, I like to say fan topology. So this doesn't divide well because it's got to go in increments of 4. So every face has to be divided in an increment of 4. A triangle's only 3 edges, right? So you're just making more triangles. Okay, so something like this is how I would clean up to the question. I would use what we have here, colored polygrouping in here. Okay, and then I need to soften up this a little bit, right? So get rid of this faceting through here. So in here, I can do a crease by PG, okay, which is for polygroups or Paul Gabry, whatever way you want to remember it. There you go. And then you click this, and then this is going to crease where I made polygrouping. And then now when I divide up, right, those edges are staying a certain harshness, and then the rest are starting to be able to smooth. But really the better way to go about this now is to send this to the remesher. Okay, so I would say this one is aligned along the Z. Okay, and then I would come in here and I would turn on this keep groups option, turn off the smoothing, and I'd probably give it a lot more topology to have, like maybe around 30,000, and then remesh this. And so now this is being sent to the Z remesher. And now what I'm going to get back is super nice, clean topology that's also based upon your polygrouping. So the facetor piece that you're bringing up, it's going to vary depending on the piece. We would need to see it to really make sure I'm pointing in the right direction. So the best thing for that is jumping online and sharing it on ZBrush Central, and then that way we can see it, right? So now we start getting topology, right? That's cleaner. So when this now divides, right, it's going to get rid of the faceting. I'm adding divisions to this, and the faceting is going to go away. Faceting just means because it's low, low, low polygon. Okay. And Tattoon, yeah, you can Z remesh and then just project the poly paint in the remesh version. And yes, this all of our sessions are always being recorded.
Yep.
And then, by the way, Eternal Games, Nan, you brought up Doom Eternal. All that, a lot of that hard surface stuff was done here in ZBrush, almost all of it. Like every model in that video game was done in ZBrush. They didn't even go to like a traditional box modeling application. They actually did it in ZBrush, and they showed us at the last summit. So if Kyle, you can get that link and throw it in there for me, please. They did a whole presentation of how they did the box modeling and everything, and the sculpting modeling inside of ZBrush for their hard surface stuff, their organic stuff. Okay, so then there you go. That's they just using ZModeler to do a lot of it and move brushes and things like that. I've already seen it, but I don't know if anybody else has seen it. Okay, back to my ship.
Back to the ship.
Something interesting here now. All right. Or did I get caught up on the questions?
I think so. It was pretty good. I think somebody asked how to retopologize at one point. You could do it a couple ways in ZBrush, but the way I like to do it, if I wanted to retopo something in ZBrush, I would actually use the ZModeler, and I believe there's actually a dedicated brush for that, but we'll set it up from scratch. If I wanted to do, retopo, this is kind of a poor example, but we'll come here to this section. Like I say, I wanted to retopo this. I sculpted this, it looked really good, and now I want to retopo that. I would stick with the ZModeler, and first things first, we're going to go to a actual IMM brush. So we're going to do BIH, which will pull up IMM primitives half, because there's a single poly in there. And I will make sure there's no subdivisions, and I will drag my poly out on that section that I want to start retopoing. Let's kind of get it where I would like it, and then let's go ahead and split hidden. So under subtool, split, and then actually we'll do split unmasked because it's not hidden, so unmasked. And now what I would recommend, this is something I do, but there's, you can either just hide everything but the two that you would like, and then you can use transparency if you want, but I tend to keep the other model not in transparent mode just for snapping purposes. And then we're going to go ahead and just kind of position where I want that. And then we're going to set up our ZModeler brush a few ways. So we're going to hover over an edge. We're going to go to extrude, and then we're going to want to make sure that we pick snap to surface. That's super important. On the face itself, we're going to go to do nothing. And then on a corner, we're going to go to move snap to surface. And now what this will allow me to do is I can start to extrude out right here. Now, see if I go to transparent, you can see it's snapping to the surface of that model. And there's quite a lot of ways you can end up doing that, but you can then start just kind of retopoing this out. You can start dragging. Let's turn the polyframe on so you guys can see. And that snap to surface allows me to snap to the next section. So I can come here. And there are little cool hidden features too. If I start extruding and I hit Alt, I can extrude an entire edge loop. If I hit Alt again and hold it, it can actually extrude the entire complete edge loop, so not just the section. But this way you can quickly block out what you want very, very quick, kind of clean that up a little bit. So that's how you would start to retopologize in ZBrush. And it's pretty quick, very effective. So hopefully that answers that question. And that came out a couple years ago, didn't it, Paul?
Yeah. I want to say that was in the 2019 version. I want to say.
Everything's blurred together.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, there's this feature.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that it's 2022 right now.
Yeah, I don't even. I know it's weird to me.
I don't comprehend the dates anymore. Like, no idea.
Yeah, it's all
happening. We literally lived the glitch. I feel of Avengers. I feel like we lived it.
That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you gotta. I'm going a little polygonal right now, but again, I don't necessarily do that with all hard surface. Sometimes I like to keep it very rough in the beginning, trying to figure out, because right, as you can see, I'm just trying to block things out right now to figure out what's this ship going to look like. And my friend is this thing. I love this thing now. Having that little, so I can see my silhouette better and see where I'm going with this. I just find it very useful. So I would recommend, playing with stuff like that so you can start looking at just your silhouette. So you'll see me doing that a lot. No, Michael Popovich is not part of the Maxon team. No. Nope, but Ian, that we have here now, our other ZBrush expert, is part of the ZBrush team now. So he's going to be doing a lot more stuff with you all, too, in the community now that he's a member of the ZBrush team. I'm excited to have him.
Glad to be here. It's super awesome. And I'll be doing a lot, we're going to keep the Ask ZBrush Questions videos coming. So, don't forget, you guys can always go to Twitter and hashtag Ask ZBrush your question, because then that can get sent to us, and then we can look at it and try to get it answered as best as possible and fast as possible.
All right. So here's something that I like to do too. Something like this. You can see I added a bunch of spans of topology here, and so I want to put like a little bit of angle here now, right? So our first thing would be to, hey, well, let's just use masking, right? But the problem is there's multiple loops here, so this is just going to create some kind of stepping thing happening here. So I'm going to do this where I'm going to mask off, okay, everything but these points there, just those points, nothing else. And then this is where I like to use, I'm going to turn off symmetry now. And this is where I like to actually use the deformer. Okay, and then I can symmetrically work on this. So that's what this is. This is for symmetry. I'm going to say I want this symmetrically working. So I'm going to pull up the red cone. And now all the white dots are only on this side and in the middle. And then I'm going to find the right number of spans. I'm going to say probably about that's enough there. Okay, and then so now I don't even need those. Like, this is more than enough for me. Right? And so I want to move these two dots as a unit. So again, something that I just did there is these dots are all about masking. So if you just click on them, see it happens to both sides now, right? But I want to move both of these as a unit. So I need to mask out these dots and these dots in here. So these dots that I'm circling here, and then these dots that I'm circling here. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is the same thing I just did to actually mask out every vertex point on this, except for those what's right there, which is holding down Control to bring out your masking. As you can see my hand, there it is. There's the first one. I'm not touching the keyboard, right? Now, if you hold the Alt key, it switches to a white box. And what that now does is tells ZBrush, Okay, everything in the white box, keep unmasked, and everything else masked. So I find this incredibly, incredibly helpful, especially I'm sure all of us, like if we go back to something like this, you want to make like a rectangle unmasked portion in the sphere. We do stuff like this, right? We do the mask first and then flip it. I don't do that anymore. I just make the square and then now I just hold the Alt key and see I get the same result. I don't need to do the flip. I'm saving one click, which those all add up over time. They all add up. Okay. So just a fun little trick for you. And then now the reason why I'm doing this on here is now when I do this, you see, I can get a different, see, I'm getting this angle. All these vertexes are kind of moving now as kind of a unit in there. And that's what I want. I wanted these to kind of all have like more of a ramp look to it. Right. So that's how, this is why I like to use this. So just a fun little extra thing for you all to think about when you're doing low polygonal items too, is think about what's going to happen when you start moving everything. Another little tip from me: use it, don't use it, enjoy, don't enjoy. That's all. There you go.
So
Continuing on the journey now of making my own ship in here. You know what? I think I'm gonna even get rid of some stuff in here. How's your piece coming along?
Coming along pretty good. Just kind of figuring out the shapes, looking at some of the. I try not to get into the details too quickly, but just kind of getting the shape coming along. I'm going to be using a live boolean here to kind of cut out my windows a bit. You see they're just sitting in there all nice. I usually spend like a good, I'm like OCD about my blockouts. I probably spend the most time in blockouts because once it's blocked out and I know it's perfect, then detailing becomes just a mindless fun time for me where I can go in and just start adding it in because I don't have to worry about the foundation, right? But so yeah, I usually take my time and I'm like, let me try this, let me try that. Usually takes me like a minute or two, but now I got something that I'm liking, so I'm just kind of finessing it a bit, seeing what I want to do next. I got some handles I want to do. I want to build a lock here as well because I'm thinking the final render. There's a scene in the show where the key glows because it's like soul bound to the ship itself. So I want to model a key at some point and then get the lock in there. So little things here and there. It's coming.
Hey, Noah, Noah, you're here. Awesome. Great to see you again. You can't know. There's no UV editor in ZBrush. There is something you can do to straighten islands a little bit with UV Master. That's about it. But there is no UV editor inside of ZBrush. But let's see if I can try and throw something together really fast that can show you this. Let's grab a cube because there is something that you could do if you wanted. So let's make this a poly mesh and let's see if what kind of UVing we get. Let's do this. Add some spans this way. 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, and then I'm going to do a polygrouping so we can make islands. Let's go to the polygroups, and then I'm going to do by normals. So every essence, it's got a own polygroup. And now let's use UV Master to quickly unwrap this. And this time I'm going to turn on the polygroup options and unwrap. Okay. And then, so this is the only thing you're going to be able to, when you're in flatten mode, if you want to start adjusting these, you can. Okay. So as an example, if I pull one of these off a little bit like that, I'm just using the move brush. And now I want to align these. Okay. What you could do is just unmask only these points here. Right. Again, there's that white little trick I showed you. Then switch to the gizmo. Hold the Alt key and click here and click there so it's aligned this way. And then now you can bring that back by hitting in the square. So you can use this gizmo to do alignments if you wanted to. Like that. Right. But then you can also, what people forget about is a brush that I like to use on low polygons as well, is actually the clip curve, right? Because you could just make a curved line and they're all going to move along there. Okay. So you could do tricks like that, would be the only thing you'd be able to do, to answer your question. There you go. Another tip. Why I've got the screen. Here's one of my most favorite features that I love to use. So especially for something like this, so you can see in the top here, I got a rounded in the top and then it's flat on the back. So to do that is actually really easy. I'm just going to go into my deformers and use extender. Like, boom. I love this deformer. I use this also, one of my favorite deformers. And now I just get rid of that back end part. Like I would probably not have all these spans either, usually in here, but then I'll come and get rid of this back portion now. I don't need it. And then these spans, I don't need all these. It's not defining the shape, right? So I don't need any of these spans in here. I can delete these if I want to. So we'll solo this out. And the reason why I'm going to do this is now I want to close off the back. So with less spans, here I'll turn on display double. So you all can see what I'm doing here. And then now I just bridge across edge to edge, right? And putting a bridge there to there. And then I don't like having the spans in there either, so that I can change the width of this. And I don't have to worry about topology, right? Overlapping on itself. And then that's how I did this back portion of this ship. That's it. It wasn't anything impressive for me, right? So it's just, that's all I did. And then now just adjusting what I want there. And then now I definitely want to start looking at what does it look like when it is divided, right? That's not what I want. So this is where I like to bring in my crease levels. So I do a little creasing. Okay. And then it brings it back to this. I'm going to drop down my crease level to something like 2. And with dynamic subdiv turned on, I'm going to up that to a 4. Right. And then now we start to get something like this. And then now I'm going to use creasing with edge looping. And let's go ahead and add some edge loop through here. Let me tighten up that back portion a little bit through there. I'm going to put a little bit of different result here. We'll tighten that up in there. Okay. And then through here. And like, say, like that. Okay. And then now I can manipulate and start playing more with what do I want to do with this surface. Maybe I want to start uncreasing these and see what that looks like, right? So I want something more rounded. I just uncreased all those edges around there. And that's what I was going for with this. And then what I like about dynamic subdiv, I'm a big fan of slide because it'll help me change things, right? So if we turn off the polyframe, you can see the profile change on the fly, right? And what's happening is I'm sliding this edge loop up and down the surface, right? And because now this edge is sitting here and this edge is way up here, these can have more movement, these edges through here, okay? So if I come closer, there's less movement. You can see this face is smaller, so you get a different profile. So low polygon wise, this is something that you can do. I do this a lot. I like using slide. There you go. That's how I did that piece.
Yeah, slide is fun. I love that. I love that feature. I use it all the time too.
Yeah. I'm constantly using that slide. Sure.
I think the cool thing about ZModeler in general is that it's so powerful and it's just one brush. You could pretty much do anything that you want to do with that brush. So it's just a really cool feature to just sit there and just be like, yep, I'm gonna do this thing, and that thing's gonna do what I want it to do. So it's really just fascinating to be able to have, you know, all these menus at our fingertips, so we never have to switch back and forth between those brushes. So yeah.
Yeah, it's opened up a lot of different types of workflows, I think. From conversations I have with a lot of artists, like people were just bringing up it, and that's why they were able to make all their hard surface, in ZBrush now. They were just using their workflow that they would do, and then now they're just using ZBrush instead to do it. So
it's so cool.
Way. Let me see if I'm caught up. Ferdos, it's gonna again, low polygon model, game ready model. It's gonna depend on the studio where you're working. If you're a triple game studio, if you're a mobile game, it's all different. And the characters too are different. If it's not a main character, if it is a main character, you're gonna have different polygon counts. There's no number to say.
Yep.
I'm just reading a question that's coming through.
Cool. I'm actually making a light right now. And I do this a lot too, especially with hard surface stuff. I like to just kind of use the gizmo, and, you know, it's when we have something like a sphere right here, you know, when you're ZModeler is one of the best features, like we've been saying, with hard surface, but, you know, we don't have to just stick with that. A lot of times I'll use the gizmo along with ZModeler. So I have this sphere here that, or I'm sorry, this cylinder here that just has no edge loops. So just to be able to quickly create some edge loops that will support the shape that I want. And then what I'll do is I'll just mask off, let's say like this section. And now I'll just kind of inflate that out to give me more of a kind of bulbous shape for my light, and then kind of reposition that. So now when I hit D for dynamic, it's not just, you know, a cylinder shape. It's now that kind of bulbous little light. And then I can even go as far as like, okay, now I want to add in some rib textures for this light, because they're not just, usually these types of lights have like a little bit of, you know, rib texture to kind of flare that light out. So I'll come in and I'll add, you know, maybe a couple more edge loops. Then I'll hover. I love this feature where hover over an edge and do poly group, boop, poly, and then come in here, just maybe give me something more like that, and then I'll extrude this out. So I'll actually use extrude for this. Kind of bring that out just a couple times, just so I have an edge loop that's supported. And then let's just go ahead and increase Paul Gabriel's. Yes, a lot of people do know that.
They do.
They do, yeah.
All right.
But now when I hit D for dynamics, that's a little sharp. We can actually, you know what, I think that'll be fine. Crease level, let's take that down maybe to like level 2. So a little bit of a fall off once we get past that. But now from afar, I can get that kind of shape that I'm looking for really quickly. So, and then just, again, that gizmo, just stretch it out. Give me something. So from afar now, because I'm thinking about 3D printing this, so I don't want super fine texture. So that'll probably work for now. I'll finesse it a little bit more, but it's just neat how fast you can get something out. Okay. Are we on questions?
Yes, a question comes right. As senior edits, can you expand a little bit on your question? How to cut, like remove one side low polygon object and have a clean topology afterwards without remeshing it? If you had some kind of image that you can share, that would help to make sure I have an understanding of what you want, because my mind's going multiple directions right now, and I don't know which one you're looking for. So if you have any kind of image that you can show, it'd be great. When to use QMesh versus extrude? Ralph's asking. You want to take that one, Ian, or do you want me to take it?
No, go ahead, take it.
Oh, he goes, go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll show it. I'm actually going to use it anyways right now. All right. So something like this, I'm building some vents, you know, for the back. You got to have airflow within a spacecraft. Got to have some airflow through there, right? So and I want to do something a little more interesting with these vents than just straight vertical rectangles here. So I'm just going to solo this out. So the thing here about QMesh, and this is the one feature that makes this brush very different than anything else, okay, is this mode allows me to do a lot of unique different items. Okay, so number one, I want to have a little bit different looking vents. So instead of me, and this might even answer a little bit senior edits question, instead of me coming to here and deleting like this face, and the third face, QMesh, I can say, how about we just take this one polygon and push it in, and we take care of the deleting for you and also the closing up for you. So we're doing multiple things at the same time. So this would be an example. I would want to use a QMesh here, not an extrude. Okay, because if I use an extrude, you're going to create polygons that you don't want in places. So if I'm extruding this, so you're going to start creating issues. That doesn't make any sense to do with that, right? So this would be one example why I would use QMesh. Now another one would be, hey, let's now, looking at this, let's bring everything back. Do I like that? Now let's put a little angle now in here. Okay, so if I was now to use extrude on this, I can do it, right? I can bring out some more faces. But now what's happening is in this area right in here, when we go to smooth this, it's going to separate because there's two faces there. They're not connected. So once again, I got to go clean that topology up. QMesh is doing this for me automatically. Okay, so when I go to QMesh, I can pull this out and then see this is all connected. So when I do this, see, they don't separate. This would be another example of why I would want to use something like QMesh instead of using an extrude. Now, another thing that you can do with this, which is nice, is let's add some more topology through here. Okay, and let's do another one there. All right, and we'll do another one there, and we'll do another one there. Okay, and then so what we can start doing here is see that face right there. What QMesh will also do for us is I push through, see it creates a hole all the way through for me. Right, so we're closing off 4 faces for you and welding everything. So again, I would never do this with an extrude, something like this as well, trying to make a hole through here. I'm not going to extrude that, right? This would be old school way. I would have deleted this face, deleted the other side, and then bridge from that edge to that edge, right? That's a lot of clicks, whereas QMesh is automatically just doing it for me. Okay, so there you go. There's an examples of where I would use QMeshing over an extrude. And in fact, as a ZBrusher person, I never use extrude at all. I usually just use QMesh, unless there's something where I only want extrude and I don't want any snapping to happen. Sometimes I'll just switch to extrude. The other thing, here's another reason why I like QMesh, right? So if you look at this, I don't like how thick this is getting overall. It's too thick for me. So like what Ian already showed, I'm going to change the poly groupings down here real fast. Okay, so this is kind of just like selecting faces. I'm just painting them, see different colors, tapping the Alt key, and it'll keep changing the color, right? And then now if I hold Alt and then let go Alt, but don't take my pen off, as you see, look up, right? It's all this beautiful orange, rustic, burnt umber. Finally got burnt umber in here, okay? Finally got in here. So then I only extrude after lunch. I like that. Okay, so now if I switch to QMesh and I say polygroup all, right? You guys would do this, but what I like to do is hold the shift key and I can adjust the thickness. So just another example of why I like to use something like QMesh a lot when I'm doing low polygonal Z modeler stuff. Okay, and then the Guardian, to your question, we'll have to get back to you on that. I couldn't tell you when that will be updated. Sometimes we have to wait for something from them to do everything. All right. So as you can see, this is the process I started to do to start making these ships. I like to block in the big stuff. I'm looking at my silhouette a lot. I'm starting to figure out how this is going to start to look. I can't say that Ian's even emphasizing that himself too, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the first stage of blocking out is just so really, really important. And I think that's something you should focus on in the beginning, is just making sure you get a block out starting to happen and get everything going. This is why sometimes I'll use Dynamesh instead. Oh, Dyna. Oh, Dyna. Love that song. Old school.
Old school, yeah.
Richie Valens.
Not that.
you know the song?
I do know the song.
Right.
It was funny, but my parents, when I was younger, they would listen to nothing but classic 50s, 60s, 70s maybe. I had to like rebel in high school and be like, oh no, I'm gonna find something different.
I think everybody does, right?
Right.
I'm wondering what my daughter's going to listen to because I just feed her the 80s all the time.
Well, the 80s are good, man. So
Oh, don't get me going. Everybody that's watched my streams know how I feel about the 80s.
oh yeah.
That is my jam.
Let's
Love me
see.
some 80s.
I love
Can't go wrong with the 80s.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, you're coming along there. It's looking good.
Yeah, we're getting something. Right now I'm actually just using planes to find the shape that I want. You know. I think the habit too, a habit of mine that used to be is like everything had to everything had to be from a single cube. And then one day I was like, I'm just gonna kit bash basically my design together. I'm gonna pull planes. And now for something like this window, I just use the planes because once I'm satisfied, then I'll just extrude them out and fit them where they need to be. So um, a style I like to say I have is, just slap it together and see what works and throw the rest out.
There.
That Gizmo duplicate. Yep.
Sometimes that's the way to go about it, right? Well, in the beginning part, you're just trying to also figure stuff out, especially if you're not making something that's known, right? You're just doing your own design.
Yep.
Just go with the flow, as I say. Sometimes let those shapes speak to you. Let them come together so that you can see stuff that's happening throughout.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what's so cool about ZBrush. You're just able to play around and see what works. So
Yeah.
I don't feel pressured to have a thing right away. I'm just like, yeah, all right, we'll just try this, and then if it doesn't work out, just throw it out and start over, and it's totally fine.
Just throw it out. For a minute.
Hello.
Okay, again, for those that are just joining us, first of all, why? Why are you late? Why are you late? No. Secondly, Ian is here, is our other ZBrush expert, and he is now a member of the Maxon ZBrush team. So you're going to see Ian a lot. He's been doing a lot of the Ask ZBrushes, TikToking. Again, he's going to be making some free assets for you all if you're signing up for our newsletter. If you want to sign up for that newsletter, get some assets from him that he's been making for ZBrush. You want to take advantage of that. So again, welcome Ian to the team.
Thank you.
Sure people are aware that you are now, and you're going to start streaming now on Wednesdays. Instead of your Sunday slot.
Yeah, so no more Sundays, but it'll be on Wednesday, be in the afternoon. So we'll be launching out a time once that's all worked out. But yeah, starting Wednesdays. That's it. Every Wednesday. Yeah. Bring your questions.
The challenge has begun. He's laid down the challenge, everybody. He's laid down the challenge.
Bring it.
I like that.
If anybody's watched my previous Sunday streams, you guys know I love tackling those questions. So definitely feel free to come.
What were you saying?
I was saying that if anybody's seen my Sunday streams before, you know that I love tackling questions and just kind of, you want to know, bring your question. I'll show you as best I can, and we'll figure out the answer. We'll get it going. So that's what I'm known for. Bring them. It'll be good.
Okay. Senior Edit, I'm going to show you something I think that might help you. So you were saying for your question, for instance, you were trying to block out a tie shape with clip curve brushes. So we'll see if I can give you something that'll help you out. All right. And Naked Buffalo, he's challenging now. Ian. Are you from Buffalo? Naked Buffalo?
Cool.
All right, so let me show you something that I like, especially like doing this part up here. So like here, let's enlarge this, you guys. So like, see this paneling up in here, right through here. I've found for me, for design wise, also for art, so I like to make a lot of layering of shapes, like I just did right here for these vent parts. There's another metal piece layered, and this creating dimensional movement. I think I really enjoy doing that with a lot of the hard surface stuff. So I want to have some of that going along the top and maybe make some different designs. Okay, so when you're making something that you're talking about and you're cutting it and then you're deleting stuff and you're trying to use close holes, sometimes close hole might not be the option for you, the way maybe you want to go. Okay, so something like, let's take this piece, I'm going to duplicate it, right? We'll hide the other one, and I'm going to apply the topology so we get something like this. Okay, so I'm going to solo this out. This is kind of, maybe this will spark some for you as well. I'm going to say that's enough. I'm going to delete. Let's only look at the red is all I actually care about. I don't care about any of this. Okay, so this is the part I'm only caring about, is this part right here. So I'm going to delete the hidden. And then here's something that I love to do. I want to create some kind of pattern. So now I'm going to turn everything on so that I can see this. Okay. And I'll turn off the line. So the only thing you guys are seeing is the red polygroup right now. So in the polygroup button here, polyframe, I turned off line. So the only thing we are seeing is the fill color. Okay. And I want to start now creating something a little different here. And I'm going to use my handy dandy friend Mirror and Weld as well. So I'm going to use a brush and Mirror and Weld. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the slice. Okay, so slice curve. And I'm going to say, all right, I want this portion to slice through there. And then we'll Mirror and Weld that so I get it on the other side. Okay, I'm going to come through. Let's make something that does that. And then Mirror and Weld on that side. And then now I'm going to come through here. And now here's a key part. I'm starting inside this color right here. I don't know what color to call that right now. Okay, that color right there. I'm going to start my strokes. I'll turn on the line this time. I'm going to start it inside there. Okay, so I can come across. And you'll notice then that this polygroup here didn't change. And that's what I want. I don't want that polygroup to actually change. So if I don't slice through completely a polygroup, it doesn't change the color. So for example, if we make this be a different color, if I came across like this and see how the curves now, it's going to stop in the pink. You see that pinkish tone stayed, everything stayed all as one unit, but this green one got split into two greens in essence. Okay. So knowing that the brush does this, I'm taking advantage of that. Okay. And then so I'm going to come across, I wanted to come up maybe about that far. Now I'm going to Mirror and Weld this over so I get both on the same side. And the only portion that I really care about now is this piece and this piece. Like this is the only part I really care about now. I'm not really concerned about any of the other pieces. So now I delete hidden. So now all I'm left with is a flat plane. So just kind of like your tie. I don't know if you're just doing a normal tie maybe. Instead of unclosing, think about more as a plane, right? Like it's just a simple plane shape. And then now I'll worry about the thickness later on down the fact. And in this case, this is going to be maybe my thickness later on. Okay. And now I want to start maybe making this one polygroup. And let's go ahead and split this up even. So I'm going to now turn on my B radius and let's make maybe a piece there. And let's go there. Okay, so now I'm getting two slices at once based upon my brush size. So that's what Control and Spacebar. Turning on that B radius stands for brush size. So now I've sliced across there. Okay, and now I'm getting two. So even if I did something like this, you can see it's going to start slicing across and giving me that cut going through there. I love it. Okay, and now I'm going to probably say get rid of that and that. And so I have something more like this. Let's delete hidden. And then now this is the point I actually remesh now. I don't remesh yet with having closed surface. I remesh now at this point so I can get some good topology because I want this topology to get cleaned up a little bit. So we'll do some, well, I'll just start with the default and see what I get. There, that's pretty good. And that's not bad, right? But I can start trying now playing with this and seeing how low can I get with the Z remesh that gives the shape that I want here. Okay, so now that I have this, right, let's bring everything back again. Let's turn on the main ship body. And so this is floating right there, right? It's at the same location. So I'm going to take advantage of our dynamic subdivs again. And then I'm going to say no smoothing, and I'm going to just start applying some thickness. So I can see how thick do I want these panels to be actually on the top. Right. So this maybe is a way, I'm not sure if this to the gentleman or lady that was asking me the question, senior edit. I don't know if this would help. And I'm going to get rid of this in the back. I don't want it to have that. Something more like that. Yeah. More around that world. Right. And this is what I mean by creating some kind of like layering. That depth, I really like how that starts looking on pieces. So there you go. I don't know if that'll help you. I don't know if that's something maybe you were looking for. And then now I would apply this. And then now, again, I'm going to come across here. And since these are 3 islands, I'm actually going to slice across the 3 islands. So that way I get the exact same edge loop everywhere. And then do the same thing here. If I got those same exact island loops. Now Q mesh, once again, polygroup all, and pull that out. Right? And then tapping the Alt key. And then now I'm going to do this and create a little bit of a bevel. There. So now my pieces look like that. Right? And then I look at it smooth with no thickness. There you go. And then those are those panels there. And then now I need to adjust this piece. This piece to be a little bit taller. Pull that up so it has more of that popping out. There you go. Okay. So that's how I started doing all this paneling up here on the top. Okay. All right, senior. Thanks. So there you go.
Starting to color. I'm here. Find the right color. Yeah, that should be good. I like to color my models too. When I get to a point where I think it's blocked out pretty well, it helps me visually see what's happening with everything. Fast. Color filling. I'll actually do white on this light for now. Very blue right now.
Blue.
But you know what's funny with this color is I 3D printed and painted a TARDIS like a few years back, and I went to try, just thinking I can go to like Home Depot, you know, and just make that color happen. And I asked the person, I was like, hey, I'm looking for a color like this. And he knew the TARDIS, and he was like, oh man, he's like, I'm gonna have to. He's like, I actually think I have that color code, but he's like, royal blue is going to be your closest, but it's actually a very specific color. I was really taken aback, but also excited. I was like, oh, let's make it. Let's do it.
I'm answering your color question, Mick Baubles. And then Leonard, we would need to see, I would probably need to see the mesh. If you have everything watertight, I would double check, make sure you don't have anything missing. Maybe run the check mesh in geometry at the very bottom. Run that on all your subtools and see maybe if there's something floating that you don't know that's floating there. So otherwise, we would need to see the mesh. So you might want to send that in if you want. Anything that you guys run into, you know, if there's a problem that you guys want us to take a look at, then support's the best spot, support.pixelogic.com for you all. So, but Leonard, I would need to see it to see if there's something else going on with the mesh on you.
Block.
Let's keep going. Let's keep on rolling.
Keep on keeping on.
That's okay. So for the color picker, again, you just click. And you can drag and you see it's picking any color in the UI or anything, right? So anywhere you drag this, it's going to pick, okay? Or you hold the C key down and then just move your cursor to the color that you want.
Yeah.
Okay, for the color picker one. That's it. And also, then Leonard, for yours down here at the bottom, geometry, mesh integrity, check running those on your and make sure that the integrity is good on your meshes.
Color real quick. My favorite is actually Z plugin, Z color, because then you can color drop off of any part of your monitor that you would like. So if you guys do have any reference and you want to grab that color, you don't have to guess. Just go ahead and, you know, click and then drag over. And so now I'm going to grab the blue in my stream spot. There's my
Although
blue.
they're not seeing your screen, they're seeing my screen.
Oh, okay.
Switch the screen real quick. There you go.
So yeah, Z plugin, Z color, let you pop over, and then I can just click this square right here. Now I'm off my tab out of ZBrush, and I want the orange from our stream, and then I hit set color, and that brings that color straight in to ZBrush from another outside source. So that's another way to grab color too. One of my favorite personally.
Yeah, you can save those out too, and you can bring in.
Yep.
Especially if you're doing something where you need Pantone colors, specific Pantone colors, or things like that. If you guys are in maybe a toy industry or something like that, that's where it can come in pretty handy for you.
Yep. And down here, you can even create your own, and it gives you the hex code. You can get your RGB, HSV. You can custom create any color you want, so you don't have to just rely on the color wheel. You can pick, or you can go and find a hex code that you like, type that in, so you don't even have to guess at that point. So Z color is under Z plugin, Z color, and then I'll pop this up right there. It's going to look like this when you default, but there's a little menu, little hidden menu. Just pop that and it opens it right up, and that's going to give you a little bit wider selection. And then, like Paul was saying too, you can lock this color palette, and you could save this stuff out too. So all that is right here. This is where you want it. File, save. You can even import if you would like. Start new if you're like, yeah, okay, I just want to start new, and let it do its thing. So all of this, it's right there. Z plugin, Z color.
Yeah, it's a handy one. It's a handy one. I'm going to start throwing in one of my favorite ways to do hard surface. This is probably one of my favorite techniques that I'm about to do. This is like a game changer for me, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to folder this actually. I'm working on the bottom real quick, but and obviously as we're walking, you should be renaming stuff, especially if whatever you're going to do after the fact with the model. It'd be good to name things as we go. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to append, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to append a cube, and I'm going to rename this bottom cut, right? And then let's make this cube tiny, rotate but tiny, sitting inside. Good to go. I'm fine with that. Right? And then now I'm going to turn on live Boolean and make this a subtractive. So now this subtool is subtracting into the one above it. Because I'm in a folder, this is only affecting the stuff within this folder. So it's not even looking at any of these subtools above that I've started making. And so now I want to start grabbing a handy dandy IMM Boolean brush. Okay, and then I'm going to work symmetrically. And now what we have is the ability, as we draw out, literally see cuts happening live for us. And adjust this and make our own. Let it go wherever you see the shape working for you. Just start playing with that. Maybe even put an angle in here. Yeah, see, things will just come to you. It's total happy little things happening through here. Okay. I find this so, I don't even know how to describe how much fun this is to me. Being able to just do this, just creating random shapes with another piece of geometry and just letting that come to life for me. Mm-hmm. Awesome. A couple little vent elements in here. You can repeat those. Like that. And this is And just did a little video on this, repeating our gizmo actions. Okay, and then let's even take the original piece once again. I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to do what I did on the top a little bit as well. Take this piece here. Let's go ahead and start looking at this now in a different way. So I'm going to turn my symmetry on for this. Okay, and switch to Z Modeler and just start having some fun with this as well. Let's see. Let's slide. Maybe do something like here. Let's add another edge loop here. Another one there. Another one there. All right. And looking just at this. And all I want are those faces right there. So just another idea of thinking here, what you all can do, right? So this is, again, same idea I kind of did for the top, but now I'm doing more of a low polygonal thing. And so I'm just looking at creating something else for this. I'm going to come across, add another edge loop, insert an edge here. I'm going to do another edge loop here. And then I'm going to go from point to point. I'm going to bridge 2 points here to here, right? So I want to go from this point to that point. And now I don't need that face, that face. More like that, right? And so now this is going to be used kind of like what I've been doing at the bottom here for this whole thing. Use this as a cutter. Oh, we don't want this and this either. Make it become like some kind of vent, other main vent for the bottom. Gizmo, position that a little bit. Something like that. You know what? I'm going to keep these off. Just only this. And then we'll move this. Okay, so I don't like that. I don't know. I changed my mind again. Change my mind. Yeah, I'm gonna go something more like that. Okay, and then now this piece that's living here, right? I'm gonna take this same approach that I was doing with the inserts, and then now I'm just gonna turn on the dynamic once again, no smoothness, and add some thickness. But this time I'm gonna make that be a subtractive, and then boom, you're cutting into your surface now, right? And you can see what that's doing. And I just prefer, this is a non-destructive workflow for me. And I just like having non-destructive as much as I can. So there you go. Something else, another way doing it low polygonal instead of doing it the way that I previously did it on the top. And then on to Ian.
Actually, we got a question here. How do I make round and smooth edges in Z Modeler? So it's actually, there's actually a few ways you can approach that, but the way I do it, I think is the easiest. And I'm actually kind of doing it right now. So so I'm making this lock for the door of the TARDIS. I'll turn on the wireframe. And this is just dynamic subdivision. Let me turn off live Boolean for a second. We'll solo it. And dark for some reason. So starter material, there you go. So this is just right now, anytime you have basically some sort of fall off, like you have your plane and then you have an edge loop that just like here just falls off just a bit, you know, where it's sharp. You use edge loops to create supporting geometry. So it's going to hug that edge. So what do I mean by that? Basically, we'll go ahead and delete Z Modeler. Select that one. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these sections first. So if I want to create a nice smooth fall off, I need something to support that. So the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is to hover over, get insert, single edge loop, and then support on both sides where you want that to be. So you're going to drag your edge loop. Why are we not doing that? Drag your edge loop. Where are we going here? Let me just bring up another subtool. This one's being finicky. F on the keyboard, reframe. Okay. So we have this edge. We want this to fall off because right now that's really not happening. So drag your edge loop, come on up, and let's say we want this right about here. We don't have to delete this edge loop if we don't want to. If we just bring our edges close to this edge, because we know this edge, once we start to subdivide, it's going to naturally smooth and it's going to collapse that edge. These two edge loops are now going to support this edge as it collapses. So if I start subdividing up, now getting a nice smooth fall off that's happening. Where before, we were to back that up and start, now it's kind of breaking on itself, right? So that's the easiest way to do that. Just bring in an edge loop to support the edge loop you want. Now you can get a little fancier with this, and I want this to be a very specific size, and I want that fall off to happen much faster. So I'm going to bring in those edge loops. I'm going to hover over the one that I want, that I know is going to round, and I'm just going to go ahead, hold Alt, and delete that. So I'm purposely collapsing that. And now I have a new kind of, almost like a 35-degree angle here. I'll bring in one more edge loop to, again, support this so that it's holding itself, so that it's not falling apart. When I start subdividing, now I have much rounder off, but it's nice and round. So as I subdivide, it's going to just keep that shape. So the important part to remember with that is having edge loops that support the fall off. If there's no edge loops there, if this is just a very flat surface with no supporting edge loops whatsoever, it's going to collapse and break on itself. And that's why you end up with weird shapes like that kind of weird fall off. So that's how I would approach it. Just bring in Z Modeler, add in a couple of edge loops, call it a day. Oh, nice. You're making a phone. Very cool.
Very nice. Getting some ventilation going through here. No need for crease. No, you don't have to crease. I think that's a personal preference. If you want to, there's a lot of people that don't use creasing. There's in essence two theories of hard surface modeling. I think there's using creasing with edge looping, and then there's just using just edge looping. I think it's personal preference. I use creasing because I don't like to add a ton of geometry if I don't need it. So I will tend to use creasing more than.
Yeah, just personal preference too. I'll use creasing. I find that when I use creasing, if I, take my model into, another program to do something else with it, then I find that the creasing sometimes, I don't know, it's hit or miss. It works for some things that I want it to do, but I don't know. I don't like having a lot of geometry either. So I'm like, let me actually just put an edge loop or two here that then supports that. So that's kind of how I approach it. But creasing is amazing when you need something like really quickly. Like when I make keys for 3D printing, like if I wanted to make a quick key cut, I don't even bother with edge loops. I'll bring in let's bring in just something random here. Boop. So we'll insert, a cube for an example. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just Q-cube this. So we're going to go to initialize and we'll Q-cube it at 111.
It sounds like you're saying cute cube.
Cute cube? Cutie cube.
It's such a cute cube.
Cutie little cube. My cute, I know, cute cube.
I had to do a double. I'm like, is he saying cute cube? Oh, I want to know.
Cutie cube.
Cutie
so,
cube.
So here, I won't even bother with adding supporting edge loops. I know this needs to be a sharp transition because I'm going to put this in my 3D model. And so I will actually just quickly go up to geometry, crease polygroups, and then when I subdivide, that happens. But when you crease as well, you can control the crease level at when that crease stops being sharp and starts falling off into some sort of radial. So the crease level is connected to the subdivision. So if I have crease level 4, subdivision 4, once I break beyond subdivision level 4, that crease is going to soften a little bit, but it's also tied to the tolerance, which this is set at about 45-degree angle. So those two features have to meet. So if you really want it to fall off, but still have that crease, you can adjust the tolerance of the angle as well as the crease level and then subdivide up, and that will start adding some fall off to that. So you can see here now it's actually starting to round with my subdivision and and it's still creased. So that's, you can play with these to get a little bit more so Cutie Cube.
Cute.
Just rename it.
We should. Cutie cube. I knew you weren't, but it sounded like for a second there that like
I wouldn't be, you know what, if I was, I wouldn't even be surprised if I was saying cute.
cute.
Fast.
It would stick if we named it that. Okay, so this is another way I like to do this. So I've loaded my TIE Fighter brush that I made when I was making my TIE Fighter, which you all can have. So again, you just email me and I'll send you this brush. So I love doing this, pulling up one of these brushes, turning on the gizmo mode, and then just cycling through and seeing what might be working as like another kind of element here I want to put within here. So I find this so incredibly useful. It just allows me to maybe just create something that I didn't even think about or see. Right, so I'm just holding down the control key and copying. And so now what it's doing is masked off that original piece, and now this is available. But because the gizmo's on, I can replace it by tapping on stuff, and now I can replace a piece. And then there's maybe, you know, some kind of extra detail starting to come in. So this is how I like to start adding some other details. I'll give you my email address. Here's my email address. So you can email me. If I don't get back to you right away, be patient. I'm going to be unavailable for the next week, possibly. So, but that's my email address. So you can email me. Eternal. I can't think of any. Maybe Ian has one. They're a good presentation that explains how you UV and unwrap in ZBrush for painting.
Oh yeah. I can't think of it as there's one right away, but I can showcase how I approach it. You know, we can definitely make sure we get something like that in the future. If you want to pop on over, I'll show you.
It's all yours.
Let me take it. Okay, so let's actually real quickly. So we'll demonstrate on this guy right here. So if I wanted to paint this lock, maybe add some cool little details or textures or whatnot. For UVs, the thing that I like to do is give complete control of the UV map as best as I can within ZBrush. And the best way to do that is to use polygroups. So something like coming up here and we'll go polygroups and group by normals is a great way to do some sort of auto select. And then if, you know, we're going to keep it on the low subdivision level. So if you already have subdivisions, drop it to subdivision level 1, or we'll go to Z plugin. I'm going to pin this onto the side, go to UV master and work on clone. Work on clone will be a really good way in order to make sure that you're working on something other. It'll create a new subtool at the top that's specifically that one thing. Turn live boolean off for now. But if you already have something that's, you know, at the base subdivision level, or it's low like this, then we could just work with this for now. And now that I have my polygroup selected or in place, all I need to do is I'm going to turn off symmetry because it's not symmetrical to the viewport, but I'm going to turn on polygroups. So UV master polygroups, turn that on. And now when I hit unwrap, it's going to see all of my polygroups here. And it's going to say, oh, yep, that's going to be one piece, another, and it'll separate it automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit unwrap. Now it's unwrapped. And you could tell it's unwrapped because if we now go to UV map, we now have a UV map here on the side. If you don't have a UV map, it will actually disappear. It'll look like this and say it's not there. It'll be grayed out. But if we do have a UV map, it will say we can morph UV. And if I hit F for a second, we can see it. Now, of course, that's morph UV. Now, turn this off. We're going to frame that. Now I want to paint on this, right? So I'm going to subdivide up a few times just so I have something that has a little bit of density to it. And now I'm going to take the bump. There's this bump setting here. I'm going to take this to 0. It's usually set at 50. And I'm going to set that to 0. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit Morph UV one more time. Now I have my polygroups, my UV map is laid out, and I could start painting on this. So let's just grab paintbrush. Let's grab a color that's hardest blue. Just fill a color. There we go. Switch over. And now go ahead and I can start painting on that. I can paint a texture. I can paint whatever I would like. And then we can go ahead and morph UV back. And now you can see that my color is now there. So that's a really simple way to get that in there. Cool.
So there I go.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And morph UV, by the way, is Control Z. So if you for some reason like you accidentally hit that button and you were doing something else and you come back and you can, it is in the timeline. As long as you have the timeline, you can undo that. It's an action. Pretty cool.
Action for the reaction. Okay, so continuing on. Well, we're almost getting close here to the end.
Yeah.
Another way to just add some little accenting lines, well, scribe lines, would be just, since it's low polygon, you guys can also, again, go this route and just use ZModeler, right? So I can insert here, I can do an insert there, right? And then now that I have this, I can use this. But what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do an inset polyloop, and I'm going to inset like that. So I'm going to, I'll create something like this. I'm just doing an inset polyloop like that, right? Because then I'm going to do a couple of little things here. We'll even do another one, change the polygrouping so you guys can see. So I'm now going to QMesh polygroup all, push this in, right? And the reason why I did the other insets is so now I can take this edge loop and delete it, and see it'll create like a ramp or a bevel, right? So if I want to have a little bit more there, okay, I would QMesh this in, change the polygroup, and then do it again, right? So now there's this inner edge. So when I do this, that's the type of bevel. Instead of me trying to do it with like bevel, 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 I'm just using only QMesh and inset to create something that looks like that. Instead of worrying about beveling. It's just another way, because sometimes I like this way because I can control where I want that bevel to actually start and end. And I might even sometimes want it to start and end at different spots. So this is just another way. And then it's low polygon. So there, and now I have that. And then so this is what it looks like smooth, right? This is the kind of stuff you want to start applying when you get to a point in hard surface where you start putting in that other. This is what I like to call stage 3. Like what Ian was really talking about too, and myself in the beginning, is you really got to block out everything first, right? And get that, how that chip's going to start to look before you even start diving into this stuff. But seeing we're just in a stream with you guys right now, I just wanted to jump ahead in certain spots to show you how I was working on this to get what you see surrounded in my ZBrush. Robert, stay tuned. If there will be a ZBrush Summit, I would say your best thing to do is just obviously watch our channels, all of our social medias, and of course, newsletter is a great way. Will announce everything through there. And again, now too, one benefit to the newsletter, now that Ian is part of the Maxon ZBrush team, he's going to be creating free assets for you guys with every newsletter. So that's another reason to be joining the newsletter. He's going to be creating some stuff, and the first one's going out in this next set of newsletters. And then Ian's going to be now the new voice of Ask ZBrush as well, and doing TikToks and doing streams like with this with all of you. Wednesdays he's going to start streaming on Wednesdays. So
yeah, it's going to be super fun, guys.
So we're still deciding, Robert. So stay tuned. It's up to Ian. Pressure.
Is it on?
Pressure's on. There.
Heat is on.
I don't know what it is. I enjoy seeing hard surface just created into something, seeing cubes and stuff just becoming something. It's just So interesting for me.
It really is, yeah. I remember when hard surface was actually super intimidating.
Yeah.
Then I just started playing with it, and I was like, oh, cool, I can do all of this. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the best way to approach, I think, any hard surface period too is pick a project, and then go at it, but keep it simple when you
Yeah.
first start it. Don't go really difficult. Go something pretty simple so you can just wrap your head around what needs to be done. So
Exactly.
that would be my main advice for those of you that are watching that have never done something hard surface. That's what I would tell you to do. And then you'll eventually get better and better, and then you'll go and find a more complicated piece, and then you'll try that out. So
So,
that would be my recommendation.
find something you love too. Your first hard surface piece doesn't have to be this crazy spaceship or some crazy, like weapon. Just find something that you really like that's simple enough to kind of tackle. That'll help you out. So, 'cause I always find if I love it, then when you struggle, you're like, okay, I know what it's supposed to look like, and it'll help you get there.
Yeah, because you want to have the ability that you finished it too, right? So don't go too crazy.
Yeah, let's go plain white.
Keep it simple.
White right here. I'm actually probably just gonna paint this this front spot. There's this little door panel right here. That's it's more like it's just a sign. So I'm thinking I'm actually just going to bring in a plane, and then I'll find that image and I'll paint it on there. Call it done. Let's get the handles on there next too. We'll need save again.
All right. Let's see. Let me look at the questions. Yes, Ralph. Yes, Joseph Just is no longer with us. Is there any way to mask a deformer? I tried it on bent arc and it doesn't work. Some deformers masking is not going to work. So if that's what you're asking, you can't mask a deformer itself. Only the deformer has masking where the white points. Okay, so that's it. That's all you're going to be able to do. I don't know if that's answering your question. Yeah. Put a little bit more elements in this. And I'm doing the subtractive subtool below the main mesh right now and just playing with that and seeing how I want to change up that element a little bit, that design throughout that top portion so it's not consistent, but having parts of rest I think is important too in hard surface. Don't go too crazy. Having points of finding that right balance. Ralph, what are you asking to explain? Oh, explain layers a little bit. Well, yeah, layers is just a sculptural addition to your mesh. So if I grab something like this, now you want to start doing something to this mesh, right? And you start adding element in here. Maybe you're not even sure if this is what you want to do, right? So this is where layers can help you. And sometimes I will use layers to apply some kind of pattern and then affect that pattern. Okay, so the first thing is just a sculptural idea of this. And layers can store poly paint, masking, and sculpt all in one layer. So you create a new layer, and then you'll be in record mode. So as you can see, if I scroll over, it says it's looking for polypaint shape and masking target. So now that's in record mode. It's saying, well, what I need to put in this layer is now from here on out, anything that I sculpt, right? So if I start putting this in here, if we switch to like the standard, and let's throw some shapes in this as well. Okay, and I start dragging stuff out like that, right? I'll just do negative. So now this is being all recorded within the layer. So now if I click to the right of record or right on the record, you'll see now it's in the eyeball form. So this means it's no longer recording. Okay, so sculpturally, if I even try to sculpt, it's going to tell you, hey, this is in record. You need to have a layer in record mode. Let me turn off the magnifier. You need to have a layer in record mode or turn off the layers. Okay, so this is now in a mode where I can turn it on and off. Maybe I've changed my mind, but then I can say, you know, maybe I want to be a little more subtle with what I've put in there, or the opposite. I want to go the opposite direction now. So I can go negative, right? So everything that was positively being pushed out is now being pushed in, and then vice versa. Okay. So this is one way of looking at what you can do with a layer. The other way would be if you're trying to make some kind of pattern or noise or anything like this, is a great way I like to use layers for too. So if we make a little bit different looking pattern here real fast, something like concrete broken a little bit, like something like that. Okay, and then you can play with the strength here if you want to. But if I have a layer on, if I make a new layer, now this second layer is in record mode. And now I want to apply this result. It's applied to the mesh now, but it's actually applied to the layer, right? So if I change my mind, say I can turn it on or off, and then turn it on, and again, I can turn it and go the opposite direction. And then there's a multiplier slider at the bottom. I can even push that in even more, right? So even if I don't find the right depth with that surface noise originally, I can use a layer to go back and play with that as well. So this is pretty much what you can start using layers for. And again, it does host paint as well, and geometry, and even masking. It'll host masking too. So if you make a new layer and you make this mask, okay, and then now you start sculpting, that's now in this layer. So you see when the layer gets turned out of record mode, the mask disappears. So I can bring that back and forth. But if I go back in record mode, see the mask comes back. So you can even store a mask in a layer if you want to go back and recall that mask again and then sculpt within that layer. So it's just multiple ways to go about this. And then you would like I said, you can even fill color. So you'd fill with color first. And then now if I switch to any brush really, but if I switch to the paint one, and now you want to start doing color, I can do a recording and then start painting this. And then what I like about this, you hold the Alt key, you can actually erase the paint while it's in a layer. So the Alt key will actually be an eraser. So this is all happening now in a layer, right? So then once again, I can turn that on and off. Okay, there you go. There's a little quick rundown of layers for you. That help answer your question? Andre, I don't know why it would do that. It might have been maybe you're in your record mode when you deleted. The best thing would be send that into our support.pixelogic.com so we can take a look at that with you so we can go back and forth. Okay, and then yeah, you can do the layers, can host all three items in one layer, or like you just saw, I did them in multiple layers. So, all right, Ian, we're gonna have to call it a stream. We're gonna
All right.
see where you're going. Again, for those of you that I think you're all been here, you all now know Ian is part of the Maxon ZBrush team. So he is going to be streaming now on Wednesdays. And then he's going to be doing a lot of Ask ZBrushes, TikTok stuff, and again, doing a lot of other things. So again, Ian, welcome. to the team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great way.
Pleasure to be here. I'm super excited. It's a lot of fun already. So looking forward to a lot of cool stuff coming soon.
Yeah, and then don't forget, we got a stream coming up on Tuesday with Brian Beatty. So for those of you who are talking about toy stuff, that's one of the best guys to go see in action. So Ian's actually going to be hosting that. So that's happening this Tuesday coming up. Well, next Tuesday, which the date is up to mine. It's at 1 o'clock. Let me get the exact date for you all. At the 10th of May at 1. Ian's going to be in there with Brian Beatty. He's going to be hosting that. So by all means, join that stream. That'll be another really good one for you all to jump in. And that one's going to be an industry spotlight. So Brian's going to be really focused in on all the toy work that he's done over the years.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot we want to talk about. So if you're really interested in the toy industry, stop by. It's going to be a really good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Ian, this was a lot of fun doing this little 2-person stream.
Yeah.
With you.
Yeah. We may have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
This was a lot of fun. Again, thank you guys for welcoming me into the team. It's super awesome. I'm really excited to be a part of it. And thank you all for showing up to today's stream. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making this. Because I typically do a lot more character sculpting, but I've been doing a lot more hard surface lately. So I want to keep doing. So this was fun. Theme challenges like this, theme sculpts like this are always a lot of fun.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Once again,
Thank you.
I'm Paul Gabriel, ZBrush Live. Ian Robinson.
Ian Robinson. You guys know
ZBrush
me.
Live as well. You've been watching a spacecraft themed ZBrush stream. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you in our next stream.
See you guys. Bye.